Max Suicune is making its Pokemon Go debut during its own Max Battle weekend, and in this video I will be going through the best counters and strategies to help you take it down easily, and later on I will be going through a method that can get you up to 9 free Suicune battles over the weekend. So the event takes place from May 10th at 6 AM until the 11th at 9 PM local time. But what exactly does this event have to offer? Well, for the bonuses, Max Suicune will be appearing more frequently at power spots, and they will require 800 max particles to battle. The max particle collection limit will increase to 1600, there'll be a quarter walking distance to receive max particles, power spots will refresh more frequently, you'll get 8 times max particles from power spots, and from the 5th of May at 6 AM until 11th at 9 PM local time, you will have 3/4 max particle cost for unlocking and powering up max moves. So this will be a pretty useful time to be collecting max particles and using them to unlock and power up max moves on Pokemon that will be particularly useful against Max Suicune. And I will be going through the best counters for Max Suicune later on in the video. You will also get a free timed research starting from May 5th at 6 AM local time that will get you an encounter with Max Grookey, some Grookey candy, and some max particles to help you out with taking on Max Suicune. And you can actually save these max particles from the timed research and claim them on the days of the event so you can use them to battle Max Suicune. But how can you defeat this Pokemon with as few trainers as possible? Well, there are a couple of really useful strategies that you can use, but first you do need to know about the roles tanks, healers, and attackers, and what makes a Pokemon good in these roles. So briefly, a tank is a Pokemon that has high defenses and a typing that resists most of attacks the Max Battle Boss can do. So overall, it can take less damage and withstand more attacks. It can also be a Max Guard user, which gives it more health in the form of shields, and it can taunt the Max Battle Boss to attack it more often than it attacks others in the party. This is generally useful when working in a team, so you can take the heat off of the attackers, which usually have stats more weighted in attack, so they are more frail and they can be defeated more quickly if hit often. Good tanks also often have low animation fast attacks, moves like Water Gun and Bite for example that have a 0.5 second animation time, allowing them to charge the max meter quicker than other moves. This is particularly helpful for strategies when everyone is using attackers or when you are soloing, because you can use the tank to build the max meter fast, then during the Dynamax phase you can swap into the attacker and use its max attacks and then swap back into the tank and repeat that process. Now healers can be pretty similar to tanks in terms of you want them to take less damage and resist attacks etc, but they are also going to be using Max Spirit to heal the 4 trainer party. So you do want them to have a high stamina stat because Max Spirit heals an amount that is a percentage of the user's HP. This means Pokemon like Max Blissey are very good for this role with the very high HP stat. And lastly, for the attackers, you do want Pokemon that have a type advantage over the Max Battle Boss, and you want as high damage as possible with strong super effective moves and a high attack stat. Their goal is to do as much damage as possible. And a quick bonus tip for further preparing against a Max Battle Boss is that they can actually do 2 types of attacks, which will be chosen from the Pokemon's charged attack move pool. One attack is a large attack that hits all Pokemon, and this one can't be dodged. And the second is a direct attack on a specific Pokemon that can be dodged by keeping an eye on the attack feed and the 3 lines that appear above your Pokemon's head. It is worth noting though that dodging has been broken in game for a while, so hopefully that is fixed before these raids go live. But if you do encounter an attack combination from the Max Battle Boss that is particularly tricky to deal with, you can always back out of the lobby and re-lobby to re-roll the moveset. This is helpful if you have certain counters that work better against certain movesets, or if Max Suicune happens to be using its stronger moves that are one-shotting your Pokemon like Hydro Pump. Now back to the question of strategy. So you can take on this battle with up to 4 people, and in your team of 4 it is recommended for 5 and 6 star max battles that you split the team into a tank focused trainer, a healing focused trainer, and 2 attacking focused trainers. However, unless you have 4 people and good communication, I would recommend a different strategy where you have all players using 2 tank Pokemon and 1 attacking Pokemon. The idea is that you start off with a tank Pokemon in the front to fill up the max meter whilst taking damage from the boss, and then when the meter is full you can swap into an attacker or a healer if you want to use Max Spirit during the Dynamax window. This takes advantage of the tank's ability to take more hits, and it stops the attacker from taking hits in the regular battle phase, so it can then be used for its max attacks. And with whichever strategy you find to be best in your specific situation, it does beg the question of what are the best counters for Max Suicune. So Max Suicune can be shiny from these battles, and the 100% IV you're looking for is 1704. It is a water type, therefore it has a weakness to grass and electric type attacks only, and it will use 2 of the following moves during battle: Ice Beam, Bubble Beam, Water Pulse, Scald, and Hydro Pump. And it is that last one, Hydro Pump, that is particularly tricky to deal with because it will most likely one-shot a lot of your Pokemon, so worth re-lobbying if you see this one. For tanks and healers, the best options will be G-Max Lapras and Max Blissey depending on the moveset Suicune has, so it's worth running both of these if you have them, or if not you could run 2 Max Blissey instead. And if you don't have them, you could alternatively use G-Max or Max Blastoise, and even G-Max Snorlax if you have nothing better. And for attackers, the best will be G-Max Toxtricity, G Max Venusaur, Max Zapdos, Max Raikou, and Max Rillaboom. So pretty much the best combination you can run is having Blissey and G Max Lapras as tanks and G Max Toxtricity in the back as an attacker. Worth noting though that Max Blissey is a better investment for the future than G Max Lapras as a tank, because there will be more scenarios where Max Blissey is useful, whereas G Max Lapras will be more of a niche tank. And if you don't have many options for attackers, worth noting you will be able to get Max Grookey and Candy for it from free timed research that starts in the week leading up to the event. And Max Grookey and Max Bulbasaur will both be available in max battles from the 5th, so worth battling these for prep if you haven't got anything better. And that leads us to the question of how many trainers is it going to take to beat this battle? Well, it is hard to say for sure until the battles go live, but based on the previous Max Raikou and Entei battles, I would imagine these raids will be doable with 2 trainers, but I would still recommend 3 or 4 trainers if you can. Worth noting as well, whilst it is expensive to purchase, Max Mushrooms do double your damage output, so it is a great item to use, especially if you don't have many people to do these battles with. And with Max Blissey, G Max Lapras, and G Max Toxtricity being some of the best counters for Max Suicune, you are generally going to need a lot of candy to power them up and power up their max moves. So it's well worth leaving multiple of them at different power spots if you've got them, so you can try and gain some passive candy. And leaving Pokemon at power spots will actually help out other trainers that are doing max battles on that power spot, so worth doing this to try and help other people, but also you could take advantage of this by going to power spots that often have a lot of Pokemon left at them and doing the Max Suicune battles there, so you've got a better chance of beating it. And if you can't manage to get as much candy as you need to level up the Pokemon and their max moves, there is a certain way you can use the candy to make sure you get the most out of your resources, because it can be tricky to decide whether to power up the Pokemon first or to power up its max moves first. So the best order of importance is to fully evolve the Pokemon first if you can, then power up to level 30, because after this the amount of resources that you need to level up becomes a lot more steep and a lot less worth it. Once at level 30 you can then begin powering up your max moves, and after that you should power up to level 40 or 50. Doing it this way will get the most out of your resources. But how can you even tell your Pokemon is at level 30? Well, the best way to tell this is the Stardust cost for powering up. So if you get to the point where the next Stardust cost requires 5,000 Stardust, that is level 29. So if you power up 2 more times, it will reach level 30. Then you can focus on powering up your max moves. But are these Max Suicune battles even worth doing? Well, Max Suicune won't be much of an attacker, but it does have a strong defense of 235 and a strong stamina of 225. So it is pretty bulky and it would make a good tank, but it does want a 0.5 second animation fast attack, which it doesn't currently have access to. However, in the main series game, Suicune does have access to Water Gun and Bite, which it could eventually get access to in Pokemon Go. This would make it a really great water type tank. Now, if you do decide you want to do these battles, battling a Max Suicune does cost 800 max particles. And while that is a lot, you can actually do up to 9 Suicune raids for free on this weekend, but to do this you have to maximize your max particles in a certain way. So to do this you need to start the Saturday with at least 1280 max particles. To do this you have to have around 200 max particles from the Thursday to carry into Friday. Then on Friday you can earn 1080 max particles by visiting 4 power spots you haven't collected max particles from before. This will get you 480 max particles. Then claim 300 max particles from walking 2 kilometers twice on the Friday to give you a total of 1080 for the day. And when added to the 200 from the Thursday, you will get 1280 to take into the Saturday. On Saturday, the collection limit will increase to 1600, but you can collect 2240 by collecting max particles from a new power spot, giving you 820 particles, then claim 600 from walking, and then collect another 820 from a different power spot. This gives you 2240 for the day. You can also save the max particles from the free timed research, which is 1400, so you will have 1280 from the previous day, plus 2240 from the Saturday and 1400 from the research, so you will have 4920 max particles, which is enough to do 6 Max Suicune battles, and then you'll have 120 left over for the Sunday. Then on Sunday you can get 820 from visiting a new power spot and 300 particles from walking 5 times to give you 1500 max particles. This is easier to do on a max battle weekend. This gives you 2320 particles plus the 120 left over from the previous day, which in total is 2440. This allows you to do 3 more Max Suicune battles for a total of 9 over the weekend. And you will have 40 max particles left over from this, so 2 times you visit a power spot throughout this whole process don't have to be new power spots, because it is the fact that it's a new power spot that's recently spawned in that gives you an extra 20 additional to the normal 100 you can collect. So that is 9 Max Suicune battles you can do if you're maximizing your particles in this specific way. However, you can get some extra rewards including max particles by joining a community ambassador meetup. To do this, you need to head to the Niantic Campfire app and check your local area on the map to see if there is a meetup being held specifically by a community ambassador. Then if you go to the meetup, you can check in via the Campfire app and you will receive a special research. These special researches do differ depending on the type of event you're meeting up for, and for a max battle day in particular, you will get 5,000 XP for winning 2 max battles, 5 great balls for catching a max Pokemon, 2,000 Stardust from powering up a Pokemon 10 times, and for completing all of these tasks, you will get 800 max particles. But with that said, if you do want to know what else is going on in May in Pokemon Go, then I recommend checking out this video next, and I'll catch you in the next one.